So, welcome back to another session of integrated marketing communication, and here we are referring to effectiveness of communication since the last session. And you see, up till now you would have realized that, as I told you in the first of initial most section, wherein I called it magic, I emphasized upon that it is a mesmerizing thing. Basically, it is so much into our lives, it actually drives us. So, integrated marketing communications effectiveness, when we talk about, we try to understand that how to foresee this effectiveness, actually how to realize this effectiveness. There can be fundamental models. There are several research papers on this, and I would strongly recommend that you go to Google Scholar and try to find out some articles on effectiveness of integrated marketing communication, and then you will find so many interesting researches associated with this. I will give you a glimpse of few of the most widely accepted researches to build upon the case, and then in due course of time I would be continuously referring to those. I have been referring to the great names like Daniel Kahneman and several other people who have contributed effectively, intensely for elaborating about the behavioral elements of humans. There are several linguistics who have been talking about how to make effective communication, and there are people who have worked upon that. Herbert Clark is one of those, and there are several other people. I would not undermine anyone, or I would not emphasize upon a specific name to especially highlight that. There have been important researchers who have contributed here basically, but let's focus upon how to foresee this effectiveness. But before that, what kind of decisions which are there which are required for an effective communication campaign. So, let us recall, we have talked about this kind of thing basically earlier as well, but just to recall, we must remember that what business we are in actually. What business we are in does not mean that what kind of a product and service we are selling. What business we are in means that what is the purpose of that business. For example, many people who are into cement manufacturing, so they are not just cement manufacturers, they are contributing into the infrastructure development, and that is how they usually project themselves. They they give stability to the structure, and that is how they try to promote themselves. There are several other products which try to suggest that how intensely they are associated with your lives. There are several food supplements, there are protein supplements which talk about your growth, your health. There are, you see, remember Complan, remember Horlicks. So, those kind of messages in storyboards, they talk about what do they do for you. So, that is where what business you are in actually, and that is what we have to recall, we have to remember, we have to rejuvenate every time when we talk of how to go for the effectiveness of or how to foresee the effectiveness of a communication. What are our competitors? Means how are they differentiating themselves from us, or what are they projecting about themselves basically, what kind of a positioning they are generating in the eyes of the same customer we are targeting, for example. So, what are they talking about themselves? So, that makes things more interesting, because here the customer would be comparing even if you do not think of that. So, so beforehand we must start comparing ourselves what business they are into. So, there comes the competition. An automotive manufacturer is just not in competition with another automotive manufacturer, it is actually the competition how both of them are projecting themselves in front of their customers. Remember, there was an advertisement by an organization wherein this young executive drives his mother back to their native home on that motorbike. Now that is how they were trying to project, actually reconnecting families with their old days and so on, kind of basically. So you see, that is how they are projecting that, they are part of your sentiments actually. One advertisement wherein a motorbike commuter or a rider, uses it for his daily life, going to office, taking children to school and so on. So there they are trying to say that we are part of your everyday movement, every time, almost whole of the day, kind of. So try and remember these things, because defining this, that what business we are into, actually is related to how we will project ourselves in due course of time. What is the fundamental entity that we design communication for? So what is our focus area? What is our goal? And what is our marketing goal, kind of. How we look into the complete marketing mix or the offering which we are putting in front of the customer. So remember these. For example, you would have again a beautiful example can be McDonald's. How McDonald's is talking about experience, happiness, and we have talked about this happiness word in the initial most part of our discussion. So McDonald's talks about family happiness within the means. They are not explicitly talking about the means, because they do not want the customer to demarcate himself in terms of a framed purchase capacity or buying capacity, but they say that happiness can be achieved in these kind of circumstances by anyone basically, and they are enabling those circumstances. They are bringing you on board in that restaurant, and they are serving you, and you have all the choices in the world in front of you, and you are enjoying those kind of. So that is where your marketing goal is. So recall these kind of things which you would have experienced altogether. You see, you go to movie halls, you watch movies basically. There is a clear differentiation in the categories of seats, but once the lights are off and you are comfortable in your seats, how many times do you realize that you are specifically sitting in one particular kind of a category of seat basically? Not many times. At that particular moment, the environment is universal for almost all. So they are giving you an experience despite of the differentiation of the category of seats basically, and this is what precisely I mean. You go to a departmental store, whatever buying capacity you have basically, or I should say shopping mall, sorry, and you are roaming around in a shopping mall. What kind of money I am carrying in my pocket does not matter, because kind of shopping mall experience is almost same for everyone fundamentally. So that is where our marketing goal or the differentiation of our marketing goal with someone else's marketing goal, or a common chord between the goals can be understood. Now let us come to the how to foresee the effectiveness of communication. So while recalling the goals, the reason for our business, we think about the words we would be using to define ourselves, our products. Words which we have just seen, while talking about in the last section, we saw that how words they remain with us, how how Hamara Bajaj remains with us, how Dhara remains with us, how only Vimal remains with us actually. So that those words basically which defined us, that is the most important part. Then comes in words along with the pictures, and it is very interesting basically. If you do not associate a word with a picture, it might be vague for you. That is why specific names are given actually. It is very important. For example, if some as an experiment to a small child, you do not tell that table means a flat surface on, let us say, some legs or without legs whatsoever, you call it table actually. So, if you do not tell the child that this means table, child only knows the name and he is unable to associate that with a picture basically, it will not matter. And that is where association of words and pictures come in. You see, all of us have names. There are two things. One, our names, they have meanings. That means the literal meaning of our names most of the times. And then our names, they give a recall to someone. For example, you take my name in front of someone who knows me, he would have my picture in his mind. Then third part, you take my name in front of the person who knows me for a long time, and that there you will have a different kind of a perspective associated with my name. Although my name is a common name, so there would be so many people like me having same name, sorry, but then every time you say that X and his picture and other elements associated with him would come, and that is where words and pictures they matter. There are several automotives. You say Bajaj, you say Hero, you say some other name, Honda, and though they are two wheelers, they have almost the same technology. I should not claim that, but almost the same technology. They have almost the similar power, but then the name differentiates whole thing getting associated with a particular kind of a picture, which is generated in the minds of the customer. You go to a building, two identical flats are there. People would have different reason to look at those flats differently, and that reason is projected by the marketer so as to create a difference for two people who would be buying that flat for a different kind of a purpose. And there would be two buildings almost identical, constructed by two different builders, and they would give different names and identities to two similar or identical buildings, and you would have a different kind of a resonance in your minds. So, that is where words and pictures they come in actually, kind of. You see, there was a time when all the cars were black. So, that was the perspective, wherein Ford Motors used to get a different kind of a response and someone else used to get a different kind of a response, though both the cars were black. So, by now you would have got this idea on what I am trying to say. Then comes in the story, how a narrative comes around names and pictures. How do you generate a perspective around those through a narrative, through a storyboard, while associating environment, characters, some other picture, a scene of a room, a scene of a hilltop or a seaside or whatsoever. Now remember those advertisements we have just played the tune for in the last session, wherein Dhara, Shuddha Dhara, a middle income group, or let us say whichever way you want to look at it, a family cooking at home, young child enjoying jalebi, kind of, Bajaj, two people riding the same scooter, someone is possessing that Bajaj, cleaning that Bajaj every morning just as a part of his life because he wants to ride that scooter to the office, and children riding anxiously at the backside, sitting at the back of their father who would leave them at school in time, that Bajaj is becoming the mode for that, and so on. So, that is where storyboard comes in, how it is associated with everyone's life basically. And there within the storyboard, what you wish to emphasize upon, har ghar kuch kehta hai, that is the emphasis. That despite these colors would be universal for so many people actually, you would also have green in your home and someone else would also have green in your home, but har ghar kuch kehta hai. So, there would be a different statement every house would be putting on as far as the house goes. And this precisely happens, You would be visiting your neighbors would be visiting you. Many a times the colors of the wall would be same, but then they will project their home with a difference, and you will project your home with a difference, not just because the difference in the furniture would be there, but definitely you would have this internal feeling that my house has a different statement to project. You know, it has a different narrative, it has a different story. So that is where हर घर कुछ कहता है, जब घर की रौनक बढ़ानी हो. So Nerolac wants to say that, you know, you want to create an aura and energy and then, you know, a vibration as far as the home goes. So that is where you want to emphasize in the storyboard. You want to touch that particular chord. There other reasons would be similar basically, but now you want to touch that particular chord as far as the customer goes. And this is how you reach to a projection point. This is what precisely I want to project. And you see, I have talked about this earlier, wherein you know, I have tried to put up a perspective around highly differentiable products and less differentiable products. For example, cement. You know, you put two kinds of cement in two jars. At least I can't recognize, you know, which kind of a cement I am looking at. Rice is differentiable, I would not contest that, but a person like me would not be able to differentiate it so easily. Tea, for example. But then message associated with tea, the packaging wherein that message is imbued with a particular kind of a name, and the perspective which that message creates, projection, how you want to project basically. Taza Hole, remember some tea? Jagore, another tea. Vataj, another tea. So there are, you know, several kinds of projections specifically associated with a particular kind of a product. And you see what it does, this generate, or this may generate an associative chord here, associative memory, and that is where I mentioned the name of you know, one of the greatest authors and thinkers of our times, Daniel Kahneman, wherein he has talked about associative memory and so on. And I will definitely, I have already mentioned to you Thinking Fast and Slow and, you know, his work. So read that and you would realize what I am mentioning about here, associative memory. It generates a chord. Remember that beautiful campaign by MasterCard? For everything else, it's MasterCard. Now you see, to elaborate upon associative memory, it is a very interesting thing. Many of you would be passing colleges or would have passed college, or you know, when I passed my college. So during those college times or during those education days or during school days, for example, we go to some canteen or cafeteria, or wherein, you know, we have money restrictions with us, and we try to put up, you know, not to put up a perspective wherein refrain from paying and let someone else pay. And then we generate memories there wherein everyone understands that we have constraints, and or sometimes we pool and share, and but memories, they get generated. After a particular stage, people get on with their lives, they start earning well. There are times when they come back and they rejuvenate those memories while sitting in the same restaurant or similar kind of circumstances, ambience wherein they get together, and there they are excited to pay actually. They want to pay ahead of their friends, and that is what MasterCard is, you know, projected in one of those campaigns. So for everything else, it's MasterCard. So there are few things which you can't buy, and for everything else it's MasterCard. So MasterCard, what they tried to do was, they tried to capitalize or put up an associative memory chord in your minds, you know, and that made it so interesting that I remember very clearly that before that kind of a campaign, not many people, almost everyone knew about credit cards. You know, plastic money has become obviously very common, and MasterCard definitely played a very specific role in that in due course of time. But after this particular kind of a campaign, they got a very prominent place in the minds of customers basically. So that associative memory element we must remember. Have you visited your old school any of these days with along with some of your friends? Or just to mention, I have gone to those places many times where I used to be in my early days or childhood days with my daughter actually. That is a very typical point wherein you want to tell your child that this is how I used to do, this is how we used to talk to each other, this is how our life was, and that is where that associative memory cord comes in, and the organizations, they definitely know this and they generate the perspective. Then comes in a very important element, and I will spend few minutes on this, wherein you see in all the tunes which we have heard, and I have been emphasizing upon that you watch these advertisements on YouTube or television or whichever source you like to go for, and then try to, apart from associative memory element within the storyboard, try to realize two important elements. One is how you are primed. What are those words which prime you? For example, I mentioned such kind of words with a different kind of a perspective earlier, but now I will use similar words for giving you a perspective on priming. For example, zindagi. Now, this word gives you hope, comfort probably, happiness probably, or let us say you become intense while hearing this word. Now, this gives you a particular kind of a priming. It resonates an element of life in you. Remember when we talked about khushi. Now, this particular word is associated with everyone's life, because everyone desires for this, as we talked about earlier also. So, this gives you a priming for the desire of happiness, and that is where words and names are very important for us, wherein because they give us priming. Safar, journey, Asman, Nadi, Sagar, Himalaya, Parvat, Desh, Rashtra, and that is why whenever national anthem plays somewhere, we tend to rise automatically. It's almost automatic. It's almost universal. You get this feeling kind of that you are part of this great nation. Whenever you see your national flag somewhere, you see you would have seen that million times, but for example, if I tell you my own feeling, whenever I look at it, it actually gives me courage, strength, and then several other kinds of emotions they tend to come in basically. The other day I was passing by somewhere, and it was a huge pole having our national flag there, flying high, and it gave me a wonderful feeling basically. That is where priming comes in. Simply say Ma, and there would be so many things which come to your mind. It gives you comfort, it gives you strength. You might remember your breakfast, you might remember your food, you might remember anything basically. This is where priming comes in. I should not be taking you there, but simply say hospital, and you get the difference what I am talking about. It gives you caution, it gives you hesitation. Even if many times it is the reason for your happiness. For example, you have been to hospital because of a childbirth, you feel happy to associate hospital's name with that kind of a perspective, but somehow still it has a caution, element of caution there. So, that is where priming comes in. And now the most beautiful part, rhyming. Name with a rhyme basically, or a chord or a sentence, you know, with a rhyme basically. That is why poetry, jingles, music, they play a very important role as far as, you know, and remember, we are talking of the reasons for, or we are wondering about why effectiveness in communication is required. So, reasons for effectiveness, and that is where rhyming plays a very intense kind of a role, and I would not time and again say those advertisements to you, and we have just heard some tunes basically. Remember that flute we heard a couple of sessions back, kind of and then associate words with that flute, the lyrics basically, and that rhyme definitely will, you know, will help you. So, recall any rhyming sentence in your mind at this moment, kind of, and you will immediately get to know what we are talking about here. So, that is where I would summarize this particular session and interaction, wherein we started from, you know, talking about how to foresee effectiveness. We went for understanding the fundamental reasons, you know, why effectiveness is required, and then we emphasized upon recalling the reason for our business, who are our competitors and how to look at them with the point of you know, comparison and differentiation and so on, and the business goals and marketing goals. Then we focused upon words and pictures, story, what we wish to emphasize upon, what we want to project, and then we talked about associative chord, associative memory, which gets generated in due course of time because of those words and pictures and then so on. And then we saw that how words they prime us and how rhymes they help us. I will play several other tunes for you in due course of time to give you an element of rhyming once again, if possible, and by that time, goodbye for now, see you in the next session. Thank you.